Hey everyone, welcome to What Did I Miss? I am your host, Plain and Simple Eric, and today I'm going over the 8th episode of the 3rd season of Star Trek Discovery, titled The Sanctuary, and looking for Easter eggs, references, and things you may have missed. But let me know right now in the comments what you thought of the episode, and do you like where the season is headed so far? This episode gave us a look at Cleveland's home planet and his very complicated past with his family there. The head of the Emerald Chain, Osira, is also revealed, and she does not disappoint, showing to be a ruthless leader that calls back to the Orion's past as the space pirates of the galaxy. We also got some more information about the burn, including what that melody that we have been hearing this season is linked to. There is also a pretty funny subplot following Tilly and Saru as they try and decide on Saru's new catchphrase as captain, which he may or may not have executed. But all in all, I thought this was a good episode that was probably one of the most well-balanced this season. To this point in the season, it seems that we as viewers have been given portions of the entire story in each episode in large chunks. But in The Sanctuary, we saw a bit of each storyline play out within this episode. We learned more about the burn, we saw the positive effect that Stamets' mentoring of Adira is having on both of them, we got some more information about what is going on with Giorgio, we learned a lot about Book, we saw Detmer take a big step forward with her recovery, we saw Tilly and Saru work together as captain and CO, and we saw Burnham and Book's relationship continue to grow. That is a lot to put in an episode in under an hour and not make it seem like a clown car. So kudos to Discovery for creating a flowing narrative throughout this episode that included all these facets. But you let me know in the comments, what was your favorite part of the episode, and do you have any new theories? Speaking of theories, I just put out my theory on the cause of the burn, and after 1 week, it looks like I got at least one part right. So I will leave that link in the description below if you would like to watch that after this. And if you are getting some enjoyment out of this video, I am very happy, but please hit that like button for me and consider subscribing as well for Star Trek new episode, trailer, and theory videos. Okay, so now I am going to be getting into spoilers for the episode, so if you have not watched it, go do so, then come back. The episode starts with Giorgio and Culber discussing her condition. At one point, she calls him the Oracle of the Mess Hall, which is no doubt referencing Culber's confrontation with his murderer, Ash Tyler, last season. Surprisingly, she accepts his help and agrees to get scanned by him and Dr. Pollard. Throughout the show, Giorgio has always looked so put together, even when she is fighting, which is often. And I think that it is very telling that in this scene, her hair is a mess and her clothes are disheveled, showing that this god may in fact be able to bleed. Book grabs Burnham after she leaves sickbay, and he tells her that Osira and the Emerald Chain are hurting his home planet named Kuwajan. He says that his brother, that he has not spoken to in 15 years, which establishes how long Book has been on his own, has finally contacted him. I think this is noteworthy because it establishes that Book has had a similar path as Burnham, that he lived on this planet and had a family, but then had to leave it and go off on his own to do what he believed in. Book asks for Burnham's help, and she and Saru go to Admiral Vance to discuss the situation. Vance states that the Emerald Chain basically has been doing the opposite of what the Prime Directive is, which prohibits Starfleet from interfering in pre-warp civilization's culture. Instead, the Emerald Chain seeks out planets in need of help, gives them what they need to survive, then enslaves them as payment. Book states that when the burn hit, it shifted his system's moon and caused sea locusts to come out of the ocean. I believe that this is not only a reference to climate change, but that this is the 8th episode of the season, and locusts were the 8th plague set upon Egypt. You could even say that the burn is an allegory to the first plague set upon Egypt, turning water into blood as dilithium killed millions of people when it occurred. Vance allows Discovery to travel there as an observer with strict orders not to intervene. We then see Tolar from the episode Scavengers explaining to his auntie Osira what happened to her slave camp and that Rin escaped with Booker. It's kind of amusing that Tolar plays Osira's nephew, because the actress who plays Osira is the niece of Margot Kidder, mostly known as Lois Lane in the Christopher Reeve Superman movies. I really like Osira because I immediately got the strong Orion pirate vibe from her, and sure enough, she makes her own nephew walk the plank after his failure. He is at first entranced and then eaten by one of the transworms we saw in the first episode of this season. After the intro, we see Tilly and Saru walking the ship discussing the current events, which include them trying to select a catchphrase. I really like these day-to-day minutia scenes, and I think Deep Space Nine and Voyager were very good about showing the inner workings of the crew, and of course, Lower Decks is an entire show based around the premise. They meet with Stamets and Adira, and Stamets states that using the data acquired from Navarre, as well as the black box data that Burnham has compiled throughout the season, they are able to trace the source of the burn to a nebula. James from TrekSphere reminded me that Discovery was found in a nebula in the short trek Calypso, And now I have a new theory about how two discoveries may exist and time travel that I will wait to get into until the end of this video. Also, if you like long-form reviews, you should really check out James and TrekSphere.com. Just click on his articles while you're reading mine. They are able to manipulate the signal frequency enough until they learn that it is a Federation distress signal, partially due to Saru's heightened senses. This scene is so compelling, because in 2 minutes it brings everything together about why the Discovery is the only ship that could have solved this mystery. Of course, the Federation and Navarre were not working together, so it was important for Burnham to be able to make that happen. But also, they did not have the acute senses of a Kelpian to discern the signal correctly, or a Trill with 7 lifetimes who is an engineering genius in Adira to create the algorithm to decode the message. In this scene, Adira also says to Stamets that they wish to be identified as neither male nor female, and instead use the pronouns they and them. If you are confused by this, do not feel bad, but I do suggest watching a video made by Jesse Gender that I will link in the description of this video. None of us wanted to inadvertently misrepresent someone else, and Adira expresses those feelings to Stamets in this scene, which is again so powerful, and I love that Star Trek stands for the representation of all people. I also love seeing this continued relationship between Adira and Stamets grow, and at this point I think Stamets may be getting even more out of it than they are. Next, we arrive on the bridge, and Lieutenant Detmer is still trying to get used to her new controls, as Saru tries out his first catchphrase, to less than applause. When the ship arrives at the planet, the Discovery picks up another incoming ship named the Viridian, which means green truth, and Saru allows Book and Burnham to transport to the surface. We then see Georgiou arrive in sickbay, and she makes a comment about looking like a human spermatozoan, which I almost think is a remark about how silly some of the medical outfits in Star Trek have looked in the past. We then cut to Adira and Stamets speaking about how Adira can no longer see Gray. I think that Gray is still there, but that he is pushing them to not only live in the past with him, but that they need to reach out to more people. It's almost like the speech that Burnham gave to Spock before she leaves him at the end of last season. We then cut to Saru and Tilly tracking Burnham and Book on the planet as Rin comes in. I mentioned in my last episode breakdown that the actor who plays Rin is married to Mary Weissman, who plays Tilly, and I love their banter back and forth here. Tilly really looks like she is stepping up into this promotion, which Saru did say is temporary, so I probably should not have been so hard on them last episode for it. Honestly, it is almost like Stamets is becoming more vulnerable like Tilly has shown to be, and Tilly is becoming much more forthright like Stamets is. Almost like working together has helped each character evolve by taking on traits of the other. I also commend Mary Weissman for being able to play vulnerable and demonstrative at equally levels of believability. Book and Burnham arrive on the planet, and Book uses his ability to move the locusts, but states that he is not powerful enough to move them all, foreshadowing the resolution of the issue later in the episode. They are quickly captured by his brother. We then cut to Georgiou once again having a flashback and calling out San. There was a San character in a pocket novel named Die Standing that had to do with Georgiou working with Emily Dax, a former host of Jadzia and Ezri Dax's symbiote, but he was not a focal point character, so not much is known about him. Philippa refuses to tell Dr. Culber what she saw as she steals one of the sensors. Meanwhile, on the planet, Book and his brother speak, and we learn that Cleveland Booker is not his real name. I had a feeling about this and mentioned it in my first episode review of the season. Osyraa arrives and is surprised to see a Starfleet vessel. She is not impressed at all with them or the Federation, and demands they turn over Rin, who she sees as a criminal but describes him as a slave. Saru reminds Osyraa about her race's experiences with slavery, as Orions were shown to be slave traders and women had the power to control men using pheromones that made them very powerful. We have seen Orion women serve in Starfleet before in this universe as well as in the Mirror universe. Osyraa issues an ultimatum to hand over Rin, and Saru asks Rin to join him on the bridge, as Osyraa then contacts Kahim, Book's brother, and orders him to hand over Book and Rin or she will starve his child. I think that is a nice touch that the same brownish amber tones used in the aesthetic of the furniture here are the same on Book's ship, showing his link to his home planet. She orders her ship to begin firing on the planet, but the planet's defense system is able to hold them off for a while. Rin refuses to explain to Saru why Osyraa wants him so badly. Saru then decides to engage Osyraa and puts the ship at red alert. As this occurs, Georgiou reads the medical data gathered from the stolen scanner and learns her condition is fatal. As soon as she hears the red alert, her first thought is for Michael, but before she can leave the ship, Dr. Culber finds her. Again, such a powerful character moment for Georgiou that even learning she is going to die and that the ship is going to tactical alert, her first and only thought is Michael. Rin gives the crew tactical information on Osyraa's ship, and Tilly offers up the idea of having Lieutenant Detmer pirate Book's ship and attack Osyraa. I thought this was a cool development, but in reality, how is this any different than Discovery attacking? Book's ship came from Discovery and is piloted by a member of Starfleet. Sure enough, at the end of the story, Asira does not see any distinction, but still it was cool to see Book's ship go at Asira's ship all X-Wing style. The development also allows Tilly to show another point of view, which is important for a first officer, and allows Lieutenant Detmer to finally resolve her issues this season. We cut back to the planet as Book and Burnham have been captured, but due to the battle are able to escape. How about Burnham straight up killing a guy right here? Lieutenant Detmer then has her moment and turns off autopilot and engages manual controls to attack the ship more aggressively. If this sounded familiar to you, it is because Commander Riker used the manual controls on the Enterprise once in the movie, Insurrection. That callback is no doubt deliberate, since the director of this episode is none other than Jonathan Frakes. I'm sure he had a lot to say on Tilly's change of candor this episode as well, as she did seem a lot more Riker-ish. We then get the brother versus brother battle, which has never been seen before in TV or on television. Book's ship is able to disable the Viridian, and Asira threatens the crew as she leaves. On the planet, the Brothers reconcile as we learn that their species are empathic, which means they can feel and understand the emotions of others. Betazoids were shown to be able to do this, along with a few other species. Michael devises a plan using technology they used in the first season, as well as Book's and his brother's ability to commune with the locusts to move them back out to the sea, thus saving his planet from meeting the Everal Chain. After the battle, Lieutenant Detmer shows that she is back to her confident self as Tilly sits down with Rin. They mention there is no such thing as Federation summer camp, but shouldn't there be? Book also brings his brother and his nephew aboard Discovery and admits that he likes where he is. We then see Dr. Culber and Stamets speaking about Adira like they are not in the room. I thought the scene was important as well, because we get to see two men speaking about a non-binary person fluidly and without confusion, which is almost like an after-school special delivery of the proper way to talk about someone who identifies as non-binary. We again get to see how this relationship with Adira has evolved Stamets to develop new emotional connections with people, which is really what this season of Discovery is all about. In lockstep, Book also confides in Burnham that he wishes to stay with her and feels like he is home with her. Let me know in the comments what you thought of the episode, but again, I really liked it. I thought it touched a lot of bases, and while the brother storyline was a bit contrived, I'll take a few coconut shavings on my cupcake if the rest tastes this good. There are only 5 episodes left this season, so I'm starting to think that the burn may not get resolved this season and will bleed over into the next. Speaking of theories, I have a new one that involves the Discovery time traveling and this nebula. The Discovery that is in the nebula in Calypso states that it has been there for 1,000 years, but we do not know if that is 1,000 years from the events of this season or from the year they left. The signal coming from the nebula may be a clue that nebula here is the same that the Discovery is in the events of Calypso. If they find that the Discovery is in the nebula, meaning there are now 2 Discoveries, that may mean it was brought to the nebula in the past, similar to the events of the Next Generation episode, Yesterday's Enterprise. The Discovery may be caught in a paradox of some sorts that requires the crew to abandon one ship for the other while the sphere data resides in the nebula. This would also allow the crew to return to their own time period while allowing a version of Discovery to be found in the short trek and keeping it out of the hands of Control, since that loop has been closed. But you let me know in the comments, what did I miss? Do you have any new theories about the burn, and did you like this episode? I will come out with a trailer video in a couple of days where I play the trailer for the next episode, then discuss. So smash that subscribe button and ring the bell so you don't miss it. I will see you next time on What Did I Miss?